All right, so we're going to move on to learn targets 9 through 11 in Unit 4, which is going to deal with plant classification. So we're going to talk about some different characteristics in plants that are used to group them, name them, and organize them as far as science and agriculture is concerned. So basically, first a broad overview of plants. What are plants? Well, they're multicellular photosynthetic autotrophs, excuse me. Let me start over. They're multicellular photosynthetic autotrophs that have cell walls containing cellulose. All of those words at this point should mean something to you. We've talked about all of these. Okay, so if they don't, be sure you let me know. Ask me a question. Hey, I forgot what this word means. I need to know. But all of those words in this broad overview of what a plant is should mean something to you. So the basic need of plants, there's 4 basic needs. Sunlight, which is going to provide energy for photosynthesis. We talked about it's going to make those high energy glucose molecules. Water, remember that the splitting of water is what provides the plants, or more specifically the magnesium atoms in chloroplasts, a steady stream of electrons for that whole system to occur. Air, plants need molecules from air, but the primary one, of course, is carbon dioxide. That carbon is going to be fixed, which is, again, means it's going to be taken from inorganic carbon to organic carbon, and that's going to be used to make glucose. And then last but not least is soil. Plants need this not only for anchorage, but also for nutrient uptake, water uptake. A lot of the needed nutrients for plant cycles are going to be found in the soil. All right, so the basic plant life cycle. All plants reproduce sexually and exist part of their lives in a haploid state and part of their lives in a diploid state. Haploid meaning they have half the needed chromosomes to be a fully functioning plant. Diploid meaning that they have the full number of chromosomes needed to be a diploid plant. The diploid plant produces male and female gametes through the process of meiosis. Meiosis is the production of sex cells. Male and female gametes is sex cells. And male and female gametes are going to be haploid. Okay, they're haploid. The haploid gametes combine, creating a diploid stage, which becomes its own organism. All right, so seeds versus spores, 2 completely different things. So spores are basic structures that are usually haploid. They're produced by the sporophyte generation of the plant. In comparison, seeds are typically self-contained structures that are diploid and are the result of fertilization. Okay? So spores are haploid, which are going to be used to carry out fertilization in some capacity. Seeds are the result of fertilization, and they have everything that is needed to grow into a new plant, while a spore does not. Vascular versus non-vascular. Very important to understand this about plants. Okay, non-vascular means no veins. So typically these plants remain small, low to the ground. They don't get very tall. They don't get very large or wide, mainly because they don't have great transport structures, which are vascular structures. Okay, vascular plants, they have a system of transport structures that transports food and water through all parts of the plant. And typically these plants are going to be a lot larger, taller, older, live longer, those type of things. So if we look, what we mean by vascular, if you look at a leaf, you see these vein-like structures. That's a vascular plant, and mosses are an example of non-vascular plants. All right, so bryophytes. Bryophytes are seedless, non-vascular plants that are able to grow with little to no soil. These live in moist areas, and the best example is mosses. Okay, so we find moss growing some places with soil, so sometimes on soil, but also a lot of places without soil. But the common factor with mosses is the areas must be moist. Next step up is going to be ferns, and these are seedless vascular plants with strong root systems. They need soil in order to grow, but they do need it needs to be moist in the area that they're growing. The best example besides ferns are also club mosses or horsetails. Next up, getting a little bit more complex, are going to be gymnosperms, and these are seed-bearing vascular plants, but they do not have flowers or fruits. They have a shallow root system, And the best example of these are conifers, like your pine trees. Some people call them Christmas trees. That's what we're talking about here. Last but not least, when naming plants, you're going to have angiosperms. And these are seed-bearing vascular plants that produce flowers and fruit. For example, think about any type of plant, and there's a very good probability you're thinking about an angiosperm. Angiosperms provide us the largest variation or variety of plants in the world. Think about any plant or tree or bush or shrub that produces a flower or that produces a berry or some other type of fruit. All of those are going to be angiosperms. There's a lot of different examples of these. All right, monocot versus dicot. Okay, so monocot is a single cotyledon leaf, parallel veins, fibrous root systems. Okay, so your monocot plants are typically a lot less complex, like grasses. Okay, we'll talk about cotyledons more at a later date. Your dicots are two cotyledons. They have net-like veins. They have a taproot system. So example is cotton, tomatoes, oak trees. Big thing I want to point out is look at the root systems. Fibrous root systems don't have that large root that grows deep down into the soil like taproot does. Annuals versus perennials. So annuals go through an entire life cycle in a single growing season with only seeds remaining. They do not come back year after year. So you have annuals, and sometimes you have some biannual plants, which means it'll take them two growing seasons to produce their seeds. Your perennials, however, the root systems remain intact between growing seasons, causing the plant to reemerge year after year as long as that root system is not damaged. If that root system is damaged, that plant will not come back. So a lot of your flowers, a lot of your flower bed or landscaping, well, that's probably an even mix of landscaping. Um, but some of your flowers are going to be annuals, and the thing that kind of throws people off on it is, if you have an annual and it goes through a growing season, but it leaves seeds, then there's going to be some more plants possibly come up of the same type the next year, but it's not the same plant. It's typically leftover seeds. Your perennials, like your trees, are right now in the process of losing their leaves, going into dormancy for the winter. But as long as their root system is not damaged through the winter months, then they will come back again in the spring. Those are perennials. And that is the end of this learning target. So be sure to complete the video form with this. And tomorrow we'll go back on into plant parts and functions with learning target 12. If you have questions, let me know. Thank you.